Hi, good morning, everyone who's joined, and welcome. We're going to wait a few more minutes. There's a couple more people that need to come in from the waiting room. Hopefully, people have changed their names before they were let in. If not, my helpful Zoom fairy is going to take care of that and change your name for you. If you would join us again, please make sure you change your name before you join the Zoom meeting so that we can make sure that you are 100% confidential before you enter into the room. Thank you.
There we go.
Give it another minute or two, and then we'll get started on this beautiful day. At least where I am, it's a beautiful day. I hope you're having a wonderful day also, and that the weather's nice for you too. If not, it will change. Okay, and we will get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to A Breath of Fresh Air, our 20-minute coffee break, where we discuss different areas of obtaining and maintaining sobriety and different types of recovery. Today, we are going to be talking about relapse and self-compassion. I'll be doing a very brief little demonstration, a little presentation, and then I'd like to open us up so that we can have an open conversation. Okay. Today, I do want to let you all know that the presentation does not reflect all the research available by any means, and I am focusing on the most common highlights. This is not intended as a replacement for proper medical care as needed. And if you would like to join in the conversation when I'm done with the presentation, please feel free to either unmute yourself and speak. If you'd rather not speak, please feel free to put some messages in the chat and I will get to them as soon as possible. I really hope to stimulate your motivation and interest in the recovery process and to keep this conversation and your motivation going. Okay. So today, welcome. I'm Beth Siegert. I am a certified professional coach, a certified professional recovery coach. I have the accelerated coaching credentials, and I'm also a certified facilitator of addiction awareness. And if you'd like to take a picture of that screen, please feel free to. That has my contact information, and we'll have it again listed at the end of the presentation if you would like to have that. Okay. So today we're going to be discussing briefly relapse and compassion. And really the topic is going to be very gentle with yourself if you have experienced that, have clients who have experienced that, have family members who have experienced relapse, and how upsetting that can be for everyone involved. A message here in the chat. Okay, and our Zoom fairy is asking us to turn off our pictures if we can, if you'd like to stay anonymous. If not, that's fine. So basically, so now what? I wanted help. Speaking from the person who's in recovery, I got help. I set some goals, which is what I'd like to do. Why am I not following through? Should I try again? Or maybe again and again and again? Okay. So this is a point of which really self-compassion comes into play. And in order to develop self-compassion, we'll talk a little bit about what that is. We need to address the 9 common obstacles to not moving forward in your recovery. The 9 common obstacles are perfectionism, perceived failure, focusing on the end result instead of where you are today. In other words, keeping your head where your feet are. Taking big steps and rushing through life. Excuses or avoidance. Procrastination, long 5-syllable word for sloth. Expectations or readiness. Am I ready? Right? Desires and distractions. Am I keeping my recovery my number one priority? Yes, we have families, children, and jobs outside and things that we're involved in or we want to become involved in, but really not keeping that idea that if we don't keep our sobriety or our recovery first, we will lose that. And lack of consistency. And you can see by the photos here, many people take it as a competition. I need to be first. Other people fear. If you look down the person on the obstacle course up in the air, fear might be keeping me from moving forward. I don't know how to do this. Or the woman who's going through her own obstacle course. It doesn't matter how big or small. If they're obstacles in keeping you from recovery, they're real. So let's just talk a little bit about what I mean by self-compassion. Self-compassion really is caring about ourselves in a loving and kind way. I did pick up a study from the Journal of Psychoneuroendocrinology, recently published, a self-compassionate study that shows that when you're compassionate to yourself, no matter what your situation, you do tend to fight off one of these stress hormones, a cortisol stress hormone, which does cause a heightened feeling of stress in people, no matter what the situation, but particularly people in recovery. And also being kind to ourselves, having the emotional boost during the recovery process of self-compassion, we can actually promote the production and the release of oxytocin, which is a neurological chemical that decreases the feeling for the drug craving or to do other activities that are not healthy for us. So by using mindful self-compassion to improve our self-criticism, learn how to self-soothe ourselves, these will lead to the lessening of relapse and cravings. And when I say cravings, I also mean the craving to spend, the craving to have relationships that are unhealthy, the craving to smoke, all different kinds of craving, not just limited to substance use disorders. So compassion for oneself, okay? Well, things to remember is this is not a solo journey. Many of us have grown up to be totally independent. I have to do all this on my own. I can't trust other people to help me. And that really literally kills many, many people every year, that thinking. Kindness versus self-criticism. How do we replace that psychological tape that keeps going around and around and around in our heads? I'm not good enough. I screwed up. I, right? Do we have a sense of common humanity, understanding and realizing that everyone is imperfect, that we're not in this life alone, that we can choose to focus on self-growth rather than self-improvement? Very different topics here. Acknowledge those mistakes as part of being human and learning how not to make those same mistakes or to repeat those behaviors that make ourselves and other people uncomfortable. Speaking to ourselves as if we were speaking to a friend who is in that very same situation with kindness and caring. Focus on self-growth, not self-improvement, and approaching these areas of our lives that give us issues, those obstacles, with curiosity. Many times when we do something that is unhealthy for us, we become very fearful, very afraid. Instead of stepping back and saying, how can I look at this and learn from this? How can I learn how to change this behavior? How can I have self-kindness to myself and be warm and understanding toward ourselves when we suffer just like other people in the world? We are not the only ones who suffer or feel inadequate or fail. Typically what happens to someone who has substance use disorder is we become that self-critic. You're so stupid and lazy. You don't know what you're doing. You were an idiot for even trying. Instead of you stood up, you tried, okay, you didn't make it this time. Let's check this out, see what we can do differently and how can we be successful? And let's define success. What does that mean? Does that mean always being number one? Well, that kind of thinking can really destroy us if we're not very careful. Many of these issues that we have stem from forces we cannot control. Accidents, they're an accident for a reason, right? And often we don't treat ourselves with the sympathy we deserve, but we would treat somebody else with sympathy or empathy and compassion. We do need to learn how to self-soothe ourselves and nurture ourselves when confronting our pain, rather than getting angry when life falls short of what our ideas for life or our expectations of life are. Right? The inner conversation needs to be gentle and encouraging rather than harsh and belittling. We clearly need to acknowledge our problems and shortcomings, but do so without judgment. Surround ourselves with people who can teach us how to do that, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a recovery coach, whether it's a doctor or a spiritual advisor or a neighbor or a therapist or a counselor. Surround yourself with people who will be helpful to you. Common humanity involves recognizing the human condition as being imperfect. We will never be perfect, so let's stop trying. That striving for perfection will stop us from even trying. I've learned more from the failures in my life than I have from the successes in my life. And I could go on and on and on and keep discussing, these different topics. But what I would love to do at this point in time is ask you all to please join the conversation. Put in the chat box or raise your hand and let us all know how you're feeling today. If there's something you have a burning desire or just a question, perhaps, how do I do this? I'm tired of hearing different wordings for this, like awareness and mindfulness, two very overused but important words today. And what does that mean for each one of us as an individual, not necessarily as a group? We have someone in the chat, so let's see what they say. What's the difference between self-growth and improvement? That's an excellent question. Self-growth typically takes a lot of internal looking and discovery and testing out new versions of ourselves so that we can learn to grow from within, instead of improvement, which is more attached to behaviors. I was speaking with a woman this morning, and she has 30 plus years of recovery, and she's struggling very, very much with a relationship with one of her children, who is an adult child. And we discussed that she spent so much time on self-improvement, meaning by improving her behaviors, but not necessarily getting into growth from within herself, finding the particular person she needs to work with in order to get inside and change herself, not just the outside behaviors, while still battling all the internal criticisms and negative, and I'm a failure, I'm not a good parent, and what I did wrong and I didn't do, and change that into growth, and how her psychological growth needs to now meet with her physical behaviors that she's doing, and who might be best for that particular person. We discussed who might be best for that particular person, and now she has some curiosity, and she's going to go talk to people and see who can help her with the growth internally, changing those tapes, getting herself to tell herself different things. Okay? So I hope that was helpful. If it's not clear, please let me know. So who else would like to join in or share their experience with their growth, or with their learning how they became a more compassionate person to themselves? This is not just about me, it's about you also. What have your successes? What have your challenges been? And how are you feeling right now? Perhaps, what are some of your imperfections you've discovered? Have you experienced a relapse? Does any of this ring a bell for you? Perhaps, what helped you recover? Or what might help you get back into recovery if you're in the middle of a relapse right now? Do you feel isolated, cut off from the world? Do you feel like you might be the only one? Those feelings can change. They're not permanent. What are some good things to say or do for someone who is experiencing a relapse? What an excellent, excellent question. Thank you for asking that. Approaching someone who is experiencing a relapse, actively experience a relapse, one of the things that I find helpful is to let them know that they're not alone. Also, to let them know that they don't ever have to feel that way again, that there is a way to recover. Ask them what they may be learning during their relapse. Ask them what they think they might do differently in order to be more successful the next time. Remind them that they are not alone. Not alone. While some people go into recovery, obtain and maintain sobriety for long periods of time without a relapse, there are many, many who don't, and they are not alone. If they choose to go into a program Or if let's use an AA meeting as an example. There are so many different meetings that person could go to feel comfort instead of criticism. You might share your experience with them, or you might share your fear with them. I've had a family member where I've had to say on more than one occasion, I'm really afraid you're going to die, and soon. And there's not much I can do to help you with that, except ask you to please go get help and then provide them with a list of many different ways they can receive help. One size does not fit all. That's why we have so many different ways that people can get into recovery, and to ask them to please not stop trying. You might express how you care and love them, or you care and love them but can't be involved when they are actively using. It really depends upon the situation. I do receive many phone calls or emails from people, and I like to speak with the person to see what the actual situation is, and then to make some suggestions from there based on my training and my experiences. Again, there's no one recipe, right? There's just not a list of things to do. You might look at this compassion list and say, well, I'm not on a solo journey and I don't criticize myself, but I keep going out. I keep relapsing. Well, then we go back to, what are your triggers? What's happening? Have you changed people, places, and things, or are you still holding on to certain things that we know are not going to be healthy for you? And then where can we get you the support in order to change that? I hope everyone's enjoying their coffee if it's morning where they are. If it's afternoon or evening, enjoying whatever beverage you are having. I actually have tea and water. These are very deep topics. I could talk for hours on any one of lines 1 through 7. So I am just giving you again a brief overview. We only have a couple minutes left. Please, if you'd like to put something in the chat, it is anonymous. No one else is seeing it. If you prefer, I don't read it out loud and write back to you, I could do that. Or you could email me and I will put the information back up on the screen. Because we would like to start having some conversations, bring these conversations to light. Next month, I'm going to be addressing diversity, inclusion, and equity within the workplace, and how we might be able to move that forward, since many companies and corporations are struggling with that right now. If you could put in the chat box for me as we get ready to wrap up, has this been helpful? What do you think would have been more helpful? Because I love to get feedback. Can I give you a little teaser on DEI? Well, I can give you a little teaser on it. What I'm going to discuss is the inequity between what corporations who feel it's okay to provide alcohol, the ones that don't feel okay to provide support for their people who are in recovery, open support for them in many different ways, shapes, and forms. That's going to be most of the topic there, is to see how the certified facilitators of addiction awareness can get into these corporations and normalize the conversation. This really shouldn't be hidden any more than someone with diabetes, heart disease, or any other illness. How can we discuss the mental illness that can go along with relapse? Many, many people use their substance, if we're talking about substance, or their behavior to treat themselves medically, to provide themselves with some relief, instead of learning how to self-soothe, provide themselves with a relief that's healthy for them. Exercise is a wonderful way to go unless you go too far. If you're finding yourself with knee operations, if you're finding yourself, you can't stop doing it, anything that you find yourself becoming out of control with, let's address that before damage is done. Before. Doesn't mean you have to give it up. It can be managing it. So I hope that was enough of a teaser. If you have anything else in mind you would like me to add into that, please let me know, and I will work it into our coffee break. I am definitely open to feedback. Well, we've gone a couple minutes over. It appears that everybody who wanted to be heard. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Does it have to be top down? Oh, no, it does not have to be top down. Look at what the unions had done for many of the companies decades ago, coming, if you will, from the bottom up. What the employees are expecting. You're putting a gym in to keep us physically healthier and working longer. You're providing fun time, right? By allowing us to drink at lunch or to have alcohol in our offices. Well, what about people who their fun time is getting the break to go do what they need to do to address their substance use or their other addictive behaviors? What about bringing someone in to come once a week to hold an internal group, whether it's by Zoom or in person, to be able to provide those people with the support they need? And also then to work with the powers that be from the top down or the bottom up and speak with them about how they can be more supportive. If you're okay with so-and-so going to the bar to have a luncheon, why don't you become okay for so-and-so to go ahead and have a particular conversation with a cup of tea? Doesn't always have to be at the 19th hole on the golf course. It can be right there in the warehouse. Well, you're very welcome for the information. Well, we're a little bit over, everyone, and I don't want to keep anybody in case you are on your break. Please feel free to send me any comments, questions. Feel free to call. Please take a screenshot of this last screen I have here. It has my information on it, and I would be more than happy to get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you enjoyed today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next month. And I believe we had selected the date, if you'd like to put it on your calendar, of May 19th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we will address diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Have a wonderful rest of your day.